Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's installment of Life Coaching Training here at coachinghangout.com. I am Sean Adams. I am the founder and, host of these conversations where every week we come together to talk about coaching, all things coaching, things that are relevant to coaching, things that can help with coaching, etc., etc. That's what we're doing. That's what we're here today. And this week's topic is all about how to live a better story. We got into talking about stories last week and how people have their own stories and they create their own stories and things like that. And we're going to be talking this week about what actions you can do and what you can do in order to be intentional about living into a better story than what you might be having right now. So that's what we've got. And we have one person who has joined us so far. So Lori, if you want to say hello to the peeps out there.
Hello peeps, this is Lori from Montreal, Canada on a beautiful, muggy, humid, but incredibly warm day. Yes, we have left winter behind us finally, and just was working this morning. Now I'm talking to you guys. Hi.
Excellent. Well, we're glad you're happy here. Glad to know that winter has finally left Canada. That's good. It only took, 7 months.
I'm starting to think of Narnia. We had a white witch or something like that.
Yeah. I have to say, ever since moving to Northern California, even though I in some ways miss the multiple seasons, I don't miss Chicago winters really at all.
Chicago got it worse than us. I honestly, I think, it was actually a lot colder for a lot longer down there. You had more weather problems than we did, so I can't complain.
Yeah, I do actually remember there was a day, at least, that it was actually colder in Chicago than it was in Antarctica, and I don't really know what that's other than I was glad I wasn't there. So it was nuts. So this week we are talking about stories, telling stories, living into a better story. And I'm just going to give a little bit of summary. Some of the stuff we talked about last week with stories and related to stories is the fact that we all have we were talking a lot about the difference between story versus truth, or what's real versus what we tell ourselves is real, based on either false facts or just misperceptions of ideas. And if we can help our clients get a better understanding of what is real versus what is perceived to be real, we're going to have a lot more success when it comes to having our clients, our coaching clients, succeed better. And today's Hangout, we want to talk a little bit about taking that to the next level. Once we've gotten them to understand and talk and discuss and really get their heads around what stories are and the fact that they may be living into story instead of reality, how can they shift that so that their story can become better? Because stories themselves are not inherently bad. It's the idea that you need to have a story to live into that can work and benefit you. But how good is that story, and how can you adjust your story to function and so that you can live into it better? So, Lori, I'm just curious your take on this about stories and coaching, and how does this tie into kind of your experiences in your life and what you've done in the world of coaching, being coached, etc.?
When you're doing a physical activity, because I'm a figure skating coach, so physical activity, I would say it probably doesn't enter into it that much as opposed to a more talk-based coaching thing, because it's very black and white. You're doing it wrong, do it this way, it'll get better. Now, having said that, every now and again I get, I think the fear factor for me when I'm coaching is probably the one thing where I have to dig a little bit deeper and go to the story, especially with adults, because there may be a reason why you're afraid. If you have some sort of bone growth condition where you fracture easily, that explains your fear. I'm gonna handle that a completely different way. That if you just tell me you're scared because you're gonna fall down, and my unsympathetic response is yes, you will. Move on. Get up when it happens. So a little bit of that, but on the whole, I would see this as more of an issue when you're doing a more life coaching element where you don't know the person, you don't know the backstory, and you don't know why they're saying what they're saying, and you can't really just superimpose your judgment on their condition. So, oh, I'm scared. I don't want to work. I don't want to phone potential joint venture partners. Well, why? You know, what is your backstory to that? Where are you coming from with that? Is it because you just don't like what you're doing? You know, and a multiplicity of reasons for that. So I think that in that situation, that's when you need to know the story, and that's when the person's story becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy as well. Like, I can't do it, I never did it, it won't work for me, blah, blah, blah. And that's my understanding of it.
Well, and I think that's spot on why we chose today's topic is there is a difference between story and reality, and really ultimately your story will ultimately become your reality. And so if we can help our clients, our coaching folks, learn to tell better stories. I can imagine in figure skating somebody who's tried to do, please ignore my utter ignorance, but a double axel. I know that's a figure skate move, so it's the only one I know. So let's say somebody's trying to so somebody's trying to do a double axel, and they're unable to do it, and eventually they get up and they're like, I'm never going to be able to do that. Well, that's a story. It's not true. They will be able to do it. They just have to keep working at it and keep trying, and their coach tells them, make this adjustment, try this, you need more speed coming into it, whatever it might be that needs to happen to it. But that idea of it's very easy to slip into these, I can't do it, I've never been able to do it, it's not possible. And especially stories are really dangerous when they start to be wrapped around, you know, exacts. I never have, I can't, I won't. I haven't up to now is a reality, but I can't is a story. So I haven't been able to complete a successful double axel is reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead of using that, you can say, I haven't completed a successful double axel yet, becomes a better story, because now you're acknowledging, because that's basically opening the door to the fact that you eventually will, and you can then add to the story, I haven't completed a successful double axel yet, but I will by the end of next week. And now you've got yourself a legitimate, real story that you can live into through practice and effort and things like that. Now, mind you, that story would be false for me. I'm not going to complete a double axel by the end of next week. Why? Because I've never. So of course I'm not going to be able to do that. But that idea of the story has to have reality to it, but you want to progress to the idea of your story being something you're going to achieve. Go ahead, Lori.
It's funny, Sean. I mean, were you a bug on the wall? This is exactly the conversation.
And it looks like Lori may have. Okay, you froze on us, or you're freezing on us. Okay. Try again, Lori, because you froze on us. Go again.
Oh no, I hear you. We're back.
So
no. I just said that this. You obviously overheard a conversation I had with someone yesterday, where basically the exact same conversation transpired, and her quote was, "I've only ever done it was a single. I've only ever done it 3 times," and I said, "No, you've done it 3 times more than never." And she laughed and said, "Okay, I like that story better."
Yeah, and that's the idea. I mean, every step, if you know where you're going, is a step in the right direction. If I'm going from Chicago to LA and I happen to take a step west, it's a step in the right direction. It may be taking me through North Dakota, which may not be, I don't know why I had to do North Dakota, but it took me it may not be the right direction. It may not be the most efficient direction, but if I know where I'm trying to get to and I take a step in that direction, I'm moving in the right direction, so that's beneficial. That's the idea of story. If you can write your story, if you can tell your story in a way that moves you in the right direction, then you've got yourself, that is improving your story, which means that you're going to improve whatever it is you're working on. So I think that's what I want people to get out of today's Hangout. I also want to say hello to the other person who has hopped in so far. So Dr. Randy, when you're ready, if you want to just unmute and say hello to the peeps, go ahead.
Sure. Hey everybody, glad to be here. I'm very excited for this one because this is one of those things that I think I get a lot more out of than I give. So even look, I'm even taking notes. So excited to be here.
But we're glad that you're here, Dr. Randy. And today, I mean, as anybody who ever has watched any of these Hangouts know, it's usually a group conversation. We throw the topic out there, we get ideas from it, and we just kind of grow off of it. So for you, Dr. Randy, as you're hearing us talk a little bit about story and changing your story, What's been your experience in how stories show up in kind of the reality of the people that you're interacting with?
One of the things that kind of sticks out for me in the initial thoughts on this is how I think sometimes your story creeps up on you, and when you're more conscious that it's starting to happen or evolve or taking a certain course, I think that's when you could have a little more input into it. So that's what I recognize personally. In other words, I could be working, not even really conscious of the story or the movement that I have, and then I have one of those moments when I go, wow, this kind of thing happened. Then that makes me more conscious of my story, which makes me more focused on where I'm trying to go.
And I love that you brought that up, because that is the reason why this is a coaching hangout and not just a regular old hangout about stuff we talk about. You can, my favorite little axiom about this is you can't see the label from within the jar. You don't actually, oftentimes you can't see your own story that you're living into from your own reality. You need somebody else on the outside looking in saying, is that really reality or is that just a story? For the ice skater, the reality was they've only done one axel once, ever, and it was successful. And so that's the story that they're telling themselves. I've only been able to do it once. Where it took that Lori on the outside saying, no, you can look at it from this perspective instead, which gives it a better positive approach. You need coaches to do that for you, and so I think that's the reason why this topic is so important on a coaching hangout like this, is without doing this, without having a coach who helps you with that, you're not going to be able to move forward and grow as successfully as you would if you have that person out there who can hold, and a lot of times it's literally just holding up a mirror saying, this is what you just said, did you hear it? Because a lot of times we don't even realize what we're saying sounds really wonky. So I think that's an important piece, so I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Randy.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to if someone is a professional athlete and maybe a famous tennis player, they're having trouble with their serve. It's hard for them to see where they're not, having the right follow through, the right positioning. But it takes their coach and their team, looking at them to then, like you said, hold up that mirror and say, hey, you gotta watch what you're doing and watch replays of themselves and start to make those corrections, or just start to move in the right direction. When they become conscious of it. And like you said, we can't always, or for me anyway, I can't live in a conscious state at all times. I think that would exhaust me. So, now and then you need someone else to say, hey, you know what, here it is. So I think that's absolutely true. And sometimes in the world of not athletic coaching, it's harder for people to conceptualize the value in what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're spot on. And in the world of anything that involves physical, our body has physical memory. When I'm coaching folks on how to do presentation or speaking, there's a certain stance that is the best stance to do speaking from. And the first time I put them in that stance, people are like, oh my God, this is really awkward and uncomfortable. Of course it is, because no one ever put you in the correct. Your body has created its own stance. You don't realize that it's projecting this. It's actually causing you to be in more pain than you think, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing with chiropractors and things like that. When they get somebody's body in the right position, it feels really weird until you get to that. But it's that idea of muscle memory. Your memory, you've taught your body to stand in a certain way or behave in a certain way, and when somebody gives you the correction, it feels awkward because your muscles don't remember it that way. And as a coach, that's our job, is to get them in that position long enough that that becomes the norm of what the muscle memory is. I'll get them to stand there, and I'll be like, just stand here for 10 minutes. Don't do anything. Just stand in that proper position for 10 minutes so your body gets it. And every time they do something that takes them out of that position, I'll just gently go and correct it and say, you were slumping, here's the fix, and get them back into it until their body gets really absolutely used to where they're at. And that's what they want to be in. So that's the same thing, though, in coaching, too, or marketing. They may have been doing this concept of marketing their business consistently over and over in the same way all the time. And then, and for them, that's all they know. Well, there's a lot of people in Facebook who think that all they have to do is post 700 times about the great special offer they have. And they don't realize that that doesn't work. They don't know any better, and no one's ever taught them better. And when they get into Facebook, they're just used to logging into Facebook and posting about their offer, so that's just what they do. So you have to look at a different way of doing it.
Well, they could also be lazy, even though that might not be all they know. That might be that they're not willing to take the time to learn something else.
Right, and that's the other side of it. Yeah, exactly. A lot of times people will default to whatever's most comfortable for them, and so they default back to that thing that's comfortable, and that becomes a problem. You've got to be able to do it in a way that is more comfortable, you've got to get back to a place that's better and more effective and successful. And so sometimes you have to get pushed out of your comfort zone in order to get pushed into your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And, Sean, for me this is a really interesting conversation because I love when things come back to a previous conversation. And for me, this is all coming back to, when we talked about a few weeks back how to choose the people that we work with, because you, again, have to choose people that want a different or a better story, or even want to be conscious of their story so that they can move in the right direction. Because I think we would all agree from being coaches that you come upon a lot of people that are not willing to do what it takes. So I think it kind of comes back around.
Yeah, and that's exactly. This is part of our role, is getting them back to where they need to be. and they just don't know. They just aren't used to it. I mean, this is the reality of a story. The story that we're telling ourselves consistently is the one that is the most comfortable for us.
Yeah.
It's that simple. The story that we choose to live into is the one that's most comfortable. And so, sorry, I have to send something real quick. The story is that it's the one that's most, you just live into what's comfortable. And this is, I have a friend who's brilliant at being able to discern kind of where people are at. And she uses the phrase, the default life. And so she forces people to get out of the default life. And so this is, which to me is an unbelievably smart thing. It's a thing that most people are stuck in. They're stuck in this concept of default life, and they need to get out of it. And that the default life is just your story.
Yeah, I sort of see that too. And the analogy is, I mean, if you've been around small children, often small children have a comfort object, and in many cases, that comfort object is a blanket that's become or a stuffed animal that they won't let you wash it, and it's become extremely disgusting and dirty and repulsive. But if you try to take that thing away, there's going to be a whole lot of screaming. And I think as adults, we kind of have a story that we hold on to. It's not very pretty, but hey, it's our story, and you can't have it. I'm not giving it up, even though it's flawed and disgusting, and there's really no good reason why you need to hold on to it. It's your story, and you're going to keep it, and it defines who you are.
Yeah, people hold on to that nasty old teddy bear because there's somehow that teddy bear makes them feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And this is what people's stories do. They make them feel comfortable and safe. Mind you, it's keeping them exactly where you are. You keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you got. So you got to do something different. And that's our job as a coach, is to cause the story, help them write a better story, which is what we're talking about today. And a lot of times the easy way to do that is change it from negative to positive. I've never done more than one single axle. You've done one single axle and will do more. So it's shifting it from negative to positive. And it's also talking about a future goal in a way as if it's in the present, in present tense.
Yeah.
I have $20,000 in income for my small business by doing the marketing I'm doing now. And even though you've got to believe it before you see it, otherwise you're never going to see it. So that's the point. If you can get people to believe it before they see it, they're going to be able to successfully and efficiently make that shift that they need to do.
It's too bad Robert's not here, because he talks about that in his book. It's I'm not there yet, but I'm doing the best I can. I'm
Yep.
moving in that direction. Even if you haven't you haven't manifested your goal yet, but I'm moving in that direction and I'm doing the best I can, and that's how you start to chip away at the story. When you start saying that, you really chip away at that negative story. And it's a way that it's a gentle way that you can say it, because you can't really, like you said, you can't really say, I'm pulling in 100K a year with my marketing. But like you said, 20,000, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
So and it keeps you from saying, I failed, I haven't pulled in 100K yet. And there's a negative story that you're just beating a dead horse with that story. At least it moves you in a positive direction.
And that's why a lot of times, Alex has taught me this, is you don't really focus in on the results, you focus in on the journey. Because if your definition of, if your story is, I have $100,000 of income from my small business, and you get to 99,998, you're going to see yourself as a failure because you didn't cross that 100,000 mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where if you only had 10,000 the year before, what the F? Like, that's a fantastic growth, and you need to celebrate that.
Yeah. And I see a lot of that with adult skiers is they often train with kids, and kids are going to get everything boom, boom, boom. Okay, kids will do it in 6 months, which is going to take an older person, a couple of years, and they'll say, oh, by the end of this year, my goal is to get this, and this job. And I look at, they put a video up themselves, and I mean, they can barely stand on 2 feet. So I just don't know them that well, but if they were my student, I think I have a little storytelling chat with them about maybe we just want to tweak the story a little bit, because as you see them at the end of the year, I'm a failure, I'm quitting, I hate this, it's awful, I hate this, impossible, and you shoot yourself in the foot by telling that kind of unrealistic story.
Yeah, and it's good. I'm a huge fan of setting goals that are huge. I forget the guy's name. He calls them big, audacious, hairy goals.
Hairy, audacious goals, yeah. Bags or whatever, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah, so you aim for those big, hairy, audacious goals, but the point is, your story is, how's it going? Have you taken a step closer to LA today than you were yesterday? Yeah. That's what the story's about. That's how you tell a better story, is that I've taken a step towards LA. That's awesome. That's the key. It's not, my story isn't, I have my $100,000. It's, I took positive action today towards my $100,000. If you can get them talking about that, and it doesn't mean you dismiss the big, hairy, audacious goals. Those are always important to have. But your story's got to be something you can believe, and it's got to be something that's positive and moving you towards your end goal where you want to be.
Yeah. Something that I think is huge and sometimes often difficult for how our culture kind of evolved over the last couple of decades is we don't ever embrace celebrating the small things anymore. And if we would learn, like you said, okay, if my goal is to make $100,000, every time I make 10, I should be celebrating that instead of saying, oh, I only made $10,000. If we celebrated that, it would keep us, what's that saying that Alex has, moving in the right direction enthusiastically. So that's what I think is a problem for our culture in general, is we know, even like with kids, in other words, instead of celebrating every good grade they have, if their ultimate end grade is not exactly what everyone was hoping for, it's like there's no celebration, and then that kind of takes away from everything good that they did throughout the year. And I think as business people, we kind of fall into that same pattern. And if we would learn to celebrate the small successes, we'd probably have a lot more of them, as well as big successes, and we'd have a better story.
Exactly. If you focus on progress, not perfection, another one I picked up from Alex, you're going to have better success. If you celebrate that progress, if you are, celebration and honoring is another part of living a better story. Is for me, it's gratitude is the language I use. You've got to be, every day I pull out a journal and I write a page of all the things I'm grateful for that day before I go to bed. It's a great place to put yourself in before you go to sleep, is writing down all the things you're grateful for. And sometimes your day may have been just miserable, and you're coming up with like, I'm grateful that the grape I had at lunch was fresh. You know what? And that's great. If you can still have a page of things that you're grateful for every day, no matter how tiny they are, those things are going to show up more in your life, and your story is you're going to feel better about who you are and where you're at, because you recognize all of the great things you have instead of focusing in on the one or two things that didn't quite go right. I mean, I've done it where I've tried to build a site and spent all day trying to build a site, and it still never worked. But if I look back and if I really sit back, I can be like, well, you know what? 12 of the pages are working great, 2 of them aren't, which means, or let's say I'm going to do easier math because I suck at math. 8 of the 10 pages are working great, 2 of them aren't. That's a B. I got a B on my day of web design. That's fantastic. 80% of my day was successful. Yeah, that's something I should celebrate, where most people get caught up on the 20% being not successful, and they get grumpy about that. Come on, Laura.
No, but you know what the best part of that is like, it's really cool. You say that, and then you find out the next day, well, those other 2 pages, it wasn't your fault. The website was screwed up, or there was a problem with the server, and it wasn't your fault. And you kind of go, that was a 100% day after all. You know, isn't that great?
It is, and the other kicker of it is, let's say I'm caught up in this, like, 2 of the pages didn't work, 8 of them didn't. If I really go into the page and look, the 2 page, let's say only 1 page didn't work. I got an A that day, but I'm still dwelling on the 1 page I can't get to work. If I really look at that page, I'm willing to bet 5% of the code I wrote is what's causing the page to not work right, and 95% of that code. So 5% of 10% of my day didn't go well. And the rest of that, which is what, 95% of my day, was fantastic. That's the kind of thing when we're talking about writing a better story. Focus in on what's going well. Allow your coach to help see the areas where your story is wrong, and let's find language and wording and adjustments to make it better. All of that together makes a significant difference.
Yeah. And then you find out it was just the 2 little brackets that were in the right place, and bazinga, you're 100%. And it's like, yes!
Sometimes it has just been a caret or a quote that caused the entire page to go wrong.
Yeah. And victory is so sweet at that point.
Yeah. So this is.
You know, I think I'm trying to remember his name. Joe Vitale in The Secret. He says if you can't think of anything to be grateful for, then be grateful that you have the eyes to watch this DVD when it was on DVD or read the book. Can't find anything else. You know, it's a starting place. I think it's challenging for some people. And I remember years and years ago when I was first in practice, we all used to do this marketing coaching program. And, you know, they used to say so many of our challenges come from mother, father, teacher, preacher, you know, where it's kind of drummed into us from such a young age that overcoming and being grateful for the little thing, whether it's, you know, the eyes to watch this video or, you know, a pen and paper to actually write something down, we don't think of those as things to be grateful for, and that's a problem that starts from a very young age. That's always a little bit harder to tweak in people when it's ingrained in them.
Yeah, and that is the challenge that people face. That is the thing that we run into, is that we're just used to something that's comfortable. That's where we're stuck, and in a lot of ways, we're trained in society to focus in on the negative. Have you ever actually asked somebody, like somebody was going out to dinner and you asked them, like, how was dinner? What's the first thing they tell you? Okay, except my steak wasn't totally well. They don't talk about the vegetables that were perfectly cooked, the wine that was awesome, that they find the one thing that wasn't all right. Oh my God, the food was fantastic, but our waiter sucked. You know what? My food was fantastic. I had the world's greatest steak. But that's just kind of our thing. People instantly want to default to the thing that isn't quite right.
Yeah. You know, my husband working.
Yeah, and one of the things I've caught on to this, and I picked up this from, I think I was listening to Abraham Hicks on something, and it was something that Abraham said that I thought was absolutely hilarious. It was talking about the fact that, like, when you start living a better story, a positive story, a happy story, your friends are going to get annoyed with you because you've spent so much time. Like, think about it. How many people do you know that are actually like those super happy, everything's great with the world, things are fantastic, everything's going easy, I don't have to try, it's wonderful, and what's your reaction? God, you're annoying.
Yeah.
But the point is, ultimately, that's who you want to be, but you just see you just don't see your story doesn't match that, so you're instantly like, okay, now that's just freaking frustrating. Your goal is to be that annoying person, to be like, you know what, my life is fantastic. Yeah, but I heard your site shut down. It did. You know what? They had a tech issue, but it didn't matter. Why? It was beautiful out. I went for a walk for that hour instead and got a beautiful walk in while my tech team fixed the site. Yeah, but then you were offline you missed, you could have lost thousands of dollars of business. I could have, but I also got outside. I got vitamin D. I got a nice walk in. The site's back up and running. Everything is running smoother. It's actually better now because they found an error that fixes everything. Hey, you know what? I'm glad my site broke because now my site's better because we were able to fix a problem we didn't even know we had. Those are the kind of people you want to become. That's the story language you want to be using and telling. Doesn't matter what, like, if something good happens, great. If something bad happens, great. Either way, you're going to learn from it, you're going to move forward, and something's going to end up being better if you choose to have the story that way.
Yeah, I know. I deal with this a lot. But my poor coach, my skating coach, has to listen to that sometimes. It's, it's just, you had all, like, or with some of the little kids, I say, if you put all your energy into actually just going out and doing it, instead of telling me for 15 minutes 100 reasons why you couldn't do it, then maybe you just do it.
Yeah.
You never know. Give it a try. See what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I learned this one, I think, from Harv about, like, results or excuses. The choice is yours. You can either spend your entire time talking about your excuses why you don't have results, or you can be doing the things you need to do in order to have them. But both of them are going to take the same amount of time. And action are going to take the same amount of time. Choose one.
Yeah, results, not reasons. I think that's what he says. They results, not reasons.
Yeah, like, and it's that concept. Yeah. So you've got a choice. You can either come up with the results, or you can come up with the reasons why you don't have the results. Both of them are going to take the same amount of time.
I think it's also a little bit of really instilling in people that we work with about how this is a story, that, when you're having a bad day, that's a snapshot in time of a very big story, and don't get really hung up on that. And yes, like you said, we can have bad days, and you can try and focus on the good things, and sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not. But for me, I think it's just saying, okay, yesterday sucked. What are we going to do today? Something good is going to happen. Let's move on to that. And this was just a small, snapshot in the scheme of a hopefully very, very long story.
Exactly.
So it's one little place on when one used to use film to make movies. It's one little box of the film in a very, very long movie. So I think you kind of need to point that out to people.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's the reason why I wanted to have this hangout and this topic for this hangout this week, is the fact that people get caught up in the wrong stories, and your story is your choice. You decide how your story is going to get told and how it's going to unfold. Do you have control over every aspect of it? Absolutely not. I love using my analogy of driving from Chicago to LA. And you know what? Maybe there's a giant snowstorm in Denver and I can't take 70 through the pass. Okay, so the path I plan to take isn't the path I'm taking to get to LA. Okay. I still have plenty of other ways to get to LA, and I can either sit there at the side. I could sit on 70 for 4 days while they try to clear the snow off the road and talk about how this sucks, I'm never going to get to LA, I'm stuck here, I'm not moving, or I could decide to turn around, go find another route around, like, that's going to avoid where it's stalled, and choose that and say, you know what, this is great. I'm getting to see scenery I've never seen before. I'm on a different road. Ultimately, it's probably going to be faster because instead of sitting there and complaining about the snow for 4 days, I'm actually still moving towards LA, even though that route might be, 6 hours longer ultimately. It's shorter than spending 4 hours complaining, or 4 days complaining, or even 6 hours complaining. If I spend 6 hours complaining about the snow while they clear it, or 6 hours driving a different route, I'm going to get to LA in the exact same amount of time, but at least I'm taking action and moving forward. That's what we want people to do with their stories. Stop complaining, stop worrying about what isn't, focus in on what is or what will be, and talk about it in a positive manner. That's my recommendation to rewriting your stories. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, I totally get it. In fact, John, you're gonna laugh about this because I don't know if I don't know if Randy gets the shovel analogy, but I mean, you remember the little shovels that we got at a course we were both at a year and a half ago, and I had a supremely horrible weekend. Um, just for some from a business perspective about a project that I thought was doing well and it was crashing, and I just had basically too many experts tell me what I should do. And I just got to the point where I was like, fine, I don't want to do it anymore. I just forget it. I quit, you know. And I was talking with a friend of mine sort of after the fact, a couple of nights, or just I think it was Tuesday night. And you know, I'm just there, just saying, it's not going to work, and this person says it's not going to work, and it's going to be a complete failure, and it's going to be blah blah blah. The story is just going down the toilet fast. And I look up on my desk, and the first thing I see is the little shovel. At which point I pick up the shovel and go, and this is the story right now. I am being attacked. It's the revenge of the shovel holders. So I just said to myself, shovel holders, cease and desist. And it was like instant clarity to my story. And it literally, it was like at that moment I said, hey, I know what I got to do now. I know why this is just getting to be nasty and unpleasant, and I know why the story is taking a turn for the worse. And I just, you know, you can one small little thing, you can turn the story around and send it in a completely different direction. So you were stuck in a snowstorm just outside of Denver. Take a twist and go south. See what's down in Las Vegas. You know.
Exactly. Odds are there's no snow in Vegas.
Exactly. Or you could have had some tremendous skiing in Denver for a couple of days if you'd stayed there. You know.
Right. Instead of sitting here complaining that you're not moving forward, find something else that's beneficial that you can do. Like, yeah, sometimes, you know what? I might have to wait while my web team design is working on fixing a page, and it might take them 2 days because there's something really crazy about it. And I could sit there and just do nothing for those 2 days and complain about the fact that my site's not up and they're working on this. Or I could be writing my next product. I could say, all right, great, I'm going to put that thing aside, not even think about it. I'm going to write a new product. And in 2 days, where I don't have to worry about keeping my business running because I can't anyway because the site's down, I can do this instead. And then all of a sudden my site's back up and I have a new product. What a great 2 days! That's fantastic. That's the kind of thing we want people to get. The choices are yours. You decide how it's going to be. You just have to make those choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for some people, I try and recognize if they do need, whether it's an hour or a couple hours, to just kind of feel bad and get over it. You know, there are people that's just kind of the way they process sometimes too. So now, obviously, letting it linger is not beneficial to anyone. But you know, sometimes it's like, all right, I just want to feel bad about this for a little while, and then I'm going to move on. So I think that just recognizing people's personalities, that they need that a little bit, as long as they recognize this is a real temporary situation. Like I know that's the way my daughter is. When she plays soccer and she loses a game, she's going to get in the car. She's going to be really, really grumpy. She's going to be really, really mean. And in about an hour, she's fine. So yeah. I've learned to just, instead of before, I would be like, why are you being so mean? And I didn't make you lose, and I didn't kick that goal past you. I've learned now she needs that hour. And I just don't talk to her, and I'm good.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's an important piece. We're not telling people to ignore where they're at emotionally and what they're going through at the moment. I have, my girlfriend and I have this policy that if something doesn't go well, we have 64 seconds to vent. If something didn't go well at work, you have 64 seconds to tell me everything about how much it sucks. And when that alarm goes off on the phone, you're done venting. Because it could go for 5 minutes, it could go into 10 minutes, and then we're both complaining, and it spirals down into this, like, 5-hour-long, you know, our jobs suck realm, or you got it off your chest, you realized it, and a lot of times that's it. Like, all complaining and bemoaning usually is repeating that same negative story of, so why did work suck today? Well, because, you know, XYZ happened. Great. XYZ happened. But instead, what happens a lot of times is XYZ happened. Really? Oh my God, and this is why XYZ happened. And this is what this is the reaction, the reality of XYZ happening. And XYZ always happens. And like, no, it's not true. It happened today, you got it, you said it, you're done, you're moving on. And it's not dismissing it. And then we, like, a lot of times we'll check in. Is that it? Is there something else? How are you feeling? And that's important. But you know what? That's part, like, setting a time, maybe 64 seconds is too short for some people. 1 minute of editing's not enough. But it might be one of those things that, like, all right, you know what? I'm giving you 1 hour. And if you're still grumpy in an hour, I'm calling you on it.
Yeah. Because you know, every time you retell the story, I think you bring up the emotions again. And every time you bring up the emotions again, it's taking a piece out of you for no real good positive reason. Like, nothing advances when you do that. When you tell the story, you just keep poisoning yourself.
Yeah, what Lori's saying is I think the roots grow when you keep doing that, right?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, what you've just done is planted a crap tree.
And you spread you-know-what on it to make it grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fertilizer.
You're adding more crap to it, which means it's going to grow really well, because what is fertilizer?
Yep.
Yeah, and the roots just kind of go.
Yep. And so this is, I love it. So I like this new analogy. So the more you complain, the better your crap tree is going to grow. Or you can say, you can stop feeding it with crap and instead say, you know what, let that over there, it's going to wither, it's going to die. I'm going to grow a happiness tree with happy thoughts, happy positive things, looking at the good things in life. That's going to make a difference.
I don't know. There's a website for this somewhere.
I don't know. I'm not. I mean, mind you, this is the man who owns Streaking.com or StreakingHangout.com.
What's it called?
Streaking Hangout. And that just came out of one of these Hangouts because we got into talking about streaking on Hangouts. But so I'm not really. I'll have to develop the crap tree analogy a little bit more and see if there's some reality to that and how I can use it. But I think that's spot on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the graphic, actually.
Yeah, and it's but I mean that is the exact thing that happens. Yeah. The more you talk about it, the more you feed it, the more it grows, and the more. So that was perfect, Dr. Randy, about roots, because you're spot on. This is why you want to live a better story. You're going to have a better tree. We talk about like the old adage of you are what you eat. Well, whatever you're putting in is what's going to come out, and the more you put in stuff, the more that's going to come out. The more positive stuff you put in, the more positive you're going to have putting out. So this is why we want you to tell a different story. So this was the point of this week's Hangout, is live a better story, and here the techniques are just to be positive, shift from the negative to the positive, look towards the future of where you want to be and act like you've already got it. Stop feeding your crap tree. That just is weird, and I don't know how that feels, but we're going to let it go for today. These are the concepts of living a better story. I think we've said pretty much everything we want to say for this week. Dr. Randy, Lori, any other last thoughts or comments you want to share before we wrap up today?
I think it's really all about, like I said before, it's a big picture. You know, you have a big, long, hopefully long life to live, and you know, you can't sweat the small things all the time, because then everything becomes the small things, and then it becomes I don't remember if it's what's his name, Clement Stone, or if it's a Napoleon Hill thing, but you know, thoughts become things. If that's all you think about, that's all you're going to get. And I think everybody could pretty hold true to that, that you know that really grumpy old person that lives in your neighborhood, they probably have a big crap tree. So, you know, and the person that's always happy that basically has nothing, to them, they have a full life. So I think it's you know, Wayne Dyer always says, when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. And I think that really applies to your story totally.
Well, and I love, you said something there that we haven't really touched on that I think is unbelievably important, and that's the fact that your story you and your story is compared only to you. I think the problem with a lot of people's stories is they're comparing themselves to someone else. And I'll go back to the skating analogy. Me doing a single axel would be freaking amazing. Somebody who's been ice skating for 27 years, it's kind of second nature. But if I compare myself to them and be like, oh, they're so much better than I am, of course they are. They spent time in it. And so you're right. It's your story. You're putting on your own movie, and when you take when you're only looking at you and what you're doing and how you're doing, your life is going to be happier. My website isn't up and running, or my website isn't perfect. That has nothing to do with me. The statement, my website isn't perfect, means it's not perfect compared to something else I'm looking at. If you get rid of comparing to something else, those negative things are going to decrease because there aren't as many. It only exists when you're actually looking at something else. Sometimes you have bad things and that happens, but a lot of these negative aspects of your story are based on comparing to others. So I thought that was, I wanted to emphasize that a little bit from what you said, Dr. Rennie. I thought that was really important as well.
Yeah.
Lori, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think what you just brought up was really good too. When Alex talks about sloppy success, just get something going. And now, it's funny. I'm looking at my website and going, you know what? That was okay then, but you know what? I can see things to make it better, and I don't feel devastated like I failed. It's just like, okay, I can make it better now. And I've had 2 years of the website being out there, and I've attracted a lot of views of it, so it'll only get better, and that'll be good because I'll have loyal followers who are going to go, oh, look, she's making it even better. Hey, I'll tell my friends you got to see this, So you just have, like you say, reframe the story, and work it to your advantage.
Yeah, I think that's the point. That's the key. I think we had a fantastically successful hangout for the three of us. Unless you any last things before I just kind of say goodbye to everybody. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for contributing to the conversation. That's how this stuff always. I'm just reading something from Stan, who's been interacting on the event page. Your story approach reminds me of when I was 12 or so and discovered the process of developing a new habit, which is you keep doing that habit, and eventually that habit becomes your norm, and it's no longer a habit, it's reality for you. That's the same thing with your story. The more you tell your story in the way you want it to be, the more it becomes the norm, and then it becomes reality. So thanks for that, Stan. Everybody, this is it. Tell your better stories. You can do it. Everybody can. It's your choice. Make it. There we go. That's it. Cheers, everybody. Have a fabulous time, and I will see everybody next week. I don't know what the topic will be, but it'll be something.
Okay.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.